Chapter 6. Fruit. In this lab of the plant structure sections, we will examine the great diversity of fruit which are the products of the double fertilization process. We will also look at the seed structure and also seed germination in this part. As you know, the fruit is the product after fertilization of plant. And there are two main parts of the fruit structure. The first part is seeds. The seeds develop from ovule within the ovary, and pericarp is the part that develops directly from the ovary wall. This is the seeds, and the funiculus is the seed stalk. The funiculus directly connected to the placenta within the locule. This is the locule of this fruit. And for the pericarp usually separated into three main layers. Exocarp is the outermost layer, mesocarp is the middle layer, and endocarp is the innermost layer. So the whole part or the three of this part we call pericarp that develop directly from the ovary wall. So how can we separate the fruit type? It depends on which criteria. If we determine by the origins of the fruit, the flower, we can separate it into three types: simple, aggregate, and multiple fruit. But if we consider with the pericarp, we can separate it into two types: fleshy and dry fruit. The first criteria is the origins of the fruit. Before talking about the fruit type determined by the origin of the fruit, I would like to remind you a little bit about the pistil types, because this is the origins and this is the character that we can determine the character of each type. Actually, the pistil type can be two types. The first is simple pistil and the second is compound pistil. Flower can contain simple pistil. The simple pistil usually have one carpel on the same flower. But for the compound pistil, it means that one flower composed of more than one carpel. For the compound pistil, it can also be divided into apocarpus and syncarpus. If the carpels in the same flower are separated or they don't fill each other, we call apocarpus. But if in the same flower they have many carpel and all carpel are filled together in a compound ovary, we call syncarpus pistil. So this is the general meaning of some technical term that you would have to know before studying about the fruit type. And also this is the diagram show you the type of each petals. One flower composed of one pistil and one carpel can be simple pistil. But if one flower have many carpel, for example, this picture they have three carpel and three pistil, but they are not filled each other, we call apocarpus. But if these three carpel or these several carpel, they are filled each other, they are unit into one pistil, we call this is syncarpus. If we characterize the fruit type by the origins or the pistil type of the flower, we can separate it into three types: simple fruit, aggregate fruit, and multiple fruit. Simple fruit develop from the solitary flower or simple flower or maybe inflorescent flower, but each flower they should have simple or syncarpus pistil only. This is the simple fruit. For the second type is the aggregate fruit. The aggregate fruit or compound fruit contains seeds from different ovary of the single flower with the individual fruitlet. and individual fruitlet join at maturity to form a complete fruit like this. The strawberry is an example of the aggregate fruit. And this is the fruitlet. Here, this is the fruitlet. The yellow one is the fruitlet. It looks like a simple fruit, but it is actually fruit because it's developed from the Apocarpus pistil. One flower contains many free pistil, and they don't fill each other. But why do they have the red one? What is the red one? The red one is hypanthium. The red one is usually hypanthium and it is the edible part. But actually the fruit is the yellow part. So we call this type of fruit is aggregate fruit. The third one is multiple fruit. The multiple fruit are the fruit of two or more multiple flowers that are merged or packaged closely together. And they actually develop from inflorescence. And this is the meaning. Pineapple is the greatest example of the multiple fruits in this case. On the other hand, if we separate the type of fruit by using the pericarp, it can be two types. The first one is fleshy fruit and the second one is dry fruit. The fleshy fruit will have pericarp that remain fleshy at maturity, but the dry fruit at maturity, the pericarp become drier. So now we start with the fleshy fruit. The first subtype of fleshy fruit is berry. Berry is a fleshy fruit that produced from a single flower, and a single flower contains only one ovary. The berry is the most common type of fleshy fruit in which the entire outer layer of the ovary wall ripened into a edible part or edible pericarp. And maybe the berry may be formed from one or more carpels from the same flower. And this will show you the example of the berry. It is tomato. The exocarp and the ectocarp is the outer skin or the peel of the fruit. The mesocarp and the endocarp are few and they cannot be separated, and they are all juicy. This is the meanings of berry. The second type is Hesperidium. Hesperidium is a modified berry that results from a single ovary within the flower. The fruit usually consists of 6 to 18 carpels. So how many carpels means how many segments. And the edible part of the mature fruit of the Hesperidium fruit is divided into segments with or without the seeds and with the J-sex inside. The edible parts are covered by a film of endocarp. The endocarp is the white layer that covers the J-sex. Next to the endocarp is the mesocarp, the middle layer, the white one also, and the outer part or the outer layer is the literally rinsed with oil gland or the exocarp with oil gland. Having oil gland in the exocarp is the unique characteristic of Hesperidium, and citrus is a good example of the Hesperidiums. The third type of fleshy fruit is peepal or pipal. Pipals is a fleshy fruit that contains 0 seeds inside the fruit, and the fruit develop from one flower that have a single ovary. And the single ovary can divide into 0 carpels. The pipal are usually developed from inferior ovary. The cucumber or plant in the Cucurbitaceae family is an example of the pipal fruit. Look at the picture. You can see that the exocarp of the paper usually thick and cannot be eaten. Next to the exocarp is the mesocarp and endocarp. The mesocarp and endocarp are fleshy and they cannot be separated each other. So we will eat the part of mesocarp and the endocarp. The fourth type of fleshy fruit is drupe. Drupe is a fleshy fruit that is usually produced from a single cyst ovary with a hard, woody layer of endocarp. The endocarp will cover a single cyst. And this is the cyst inside. The seed covered by the endocarp. The endocarp are hard and thick. The edible part is mesocarp, and the exocarp is the peelings. Mango is an example of drupe, and also coconut. This is the drupe fruit of coconut. The exocarp is the outer part, and the mesocarp contains zero fiber, and the endocarp is the coconut shells. Inside the coconut shell or coconut endocarp is endosperm, and the endosperm of coconut have two types, the liquid endosperm and solid endosperm. The solid endosperm is the white pulp and the liquid are inside. It can be eaten both part, but in group of this type or in the coconut we cannot eat the mesocarp, the endocarp or exocarp. We eat only the endosperm. So it's quite different from mangoes. The fifth is pome. Pome is the fleshy fruit that produced by plant in some plant from the family Rosaceae, such as apple or pear. Pome is a type of fleshy fruit that has a thick outer fleshy layer and a center core. The edible part is not the pericarp. It's quite different from other fleshy fruit because the edible part is not the pericarp, but this is the hypanthium. This is the hypanthium. Hypanthium, do you remember this technical term? The hypanthium is the cup-shaped structure at the flower stage. The cup-shaped structure develop and cover the pericarp, and here this is the pericarp. The pericarp quite hard and is grouped into one layer, so we cannot separate it which one is exocarp, mesocarp, endocarp. We call pericarp only, and inside the pericarp is the cyst. So the edible part in the pome is hypanthium. The last one is actually it is actually not a fruit type, but it is some part of the species outgrowth from the seeds and completely cover the seeds. The edible part is fleshy and it's delicious. We call this the aril. The aril usually develop from the funiculus, for example, in the lungs. So where is the pericarp? The pericarp is the outer part and we cannot separate into three layer or three sub-layer. Like we cannot see which one is exocarp, mesocarp, endocarp. We call of this is pericarp. So this part is aerial. So in summary, I would like you guys try to fill in the information between each character, like a fleshy part, exocarp, mesocarp, and endocarp, how is it and how different between each type of the fleshy fruit. So in summary, the first type of indigestion dry fruit is akin. Akin is a type of simple dry fruit that produced by many species of flowering plant. For example, in the sunflower family. And this is the fruit or the akin fruit. It looks like a seed. We call this a seed, but it is actually the fruit. The achene contains a single seed inside, and it fills in the pericarp. And here, this is the pericarp, and inside is the seeds. The eatable part is the seeds. We eat the seeds, but we don't eat the pericarp. So the meaning of achene is that the dry fruit that the seeds and the pericarp can be separated each other. In the strawberry, if we consider the fruit type of strawberry as we previously mentioned, we talk about their aggregate fruit because they have hypanthium, and hypanthium develop into their fleshy, it's like fleshy receptacle or the red one, and the yellow one is the fruitlet. If we consider eat fruitlet, the fruitlet is achene. So the fruits of strawberry quite unique. If we consider the origins of the fruit, we will call that the fruit of strawberry is aggregate. But if we consider the pericarp of the fruitlet, it is achene, it is dry fruit. The second type of indehiscent dry fruit is caryopsis. Caryopsis is a type of simple fruit, and it is the monocarpellate fruit. It means that the flower contains single carpel or have only one carpel. The caryopsis is popularly called a grain, and it is the fruit typical of the family Poaceae or the class family. The rice is an example of the caryopsis. Do you remember the character of flower in the Poaceae or a flower of the rice? They usually lack or they usually reduce sepal and petal, and they have lemma and palea that cover the seeds. This is the lemma and palea. Inside the lemma and palea is the zest and the pericarp. So the eatable part is not the pericarp, but we usually eat the endosperm inside the seeds. And the most important character or the important criteria that we separate the caryopsis from achene is that the caryopsis fruit, we cannot separate the pericarp from the seeds. But in the achene, we can separate the seeds from the pericarp. So this is the meaning. The first one is Samara. Samara is a modified achene or achene, a winged achenes. This is a type of fruit with the flat wing, and the flat wing develop from ovary wall or pericarp. So this is the pericarp, and the pericarp can be separated from the seed. So it can be modified achene, but we call this is Samara. Samara is a simple dry fruit, and it is indehiscent dry fruit. The another type is also wing fruit, but this is the wing nut. Is it the modified nut fruit that they remain the calyx or the modified calyx as the wing? And this is the wing, and the wing develop from the calyx, not from the pericarp like in Samara. So we call this is samaroid. So now we're gonna move to the dehiscent dry fruit. The meaning of dehiscent dry fruit is that the fruit can split in different directions. The first type is lomentum or lomen. The lomentum or lomen is a type of dehiscent that usually found in legume family, or it is in the legume fruit. The fruit can break apart at constrictions occurring between segments. So it can be split transversely like this between the segments. So each segment contains only one seed and only one carpel per one fruit. But but if the fruit that have only one carpel, but they split on one side, we call the follicle. This is the follicle. In some plants, especially in the legume, they don't have lomentum, but they have legume type. The legume type is the fruit that have one carpel, but they split on two sides from the top to bottom. This is the top and this is the bottom. So we call this is legume. Meanwhile, if the fruit contains two carpels and they split in the opposite way of legume, like they split on two sides and split from bottom to the top. From bottom, here is the bottom, to the top. We call this type is ciliate. So this is the comparisons between ciliate and legume. They split on two sides but split in different way. The ciliate split from bottom to the top. The bottom you can start with the position next to the peduncle, and the top or the tip is the style. So the ciliate split from bottom to top, but legume split from the top to the bottoms. So this is how difference between ciliate and legume. In the case of flower that they have more than two carpel, or they have two carpel or more than two carpel, and they split the fruit split by carpel into the segment or into mericarp, and only one seed per carpel. We call this type of fruit is schizocarp. This is the character of schizocarp, and we call this segment the segment of schizocarp is mericarp. In case of some flower that they have syncarpous pistils, and when they become a fruit, the fruit at maturity is split at different way or split variously. We call this type of fruit is capsules. And there are so many subtypes of the capsules, depend on the direction of of the way that they split. If they split at the septum, we call septicidal capsules. This is the septum between the locule. But if they split at the locule, we call loculicidal. In some plant, they split into the lid, or they split transversely to produce the lid at the tip. We call circumscissile. And the last subtype is poricidal. The poricidal capsule is that the fruit dehiscence at the tip and at the pore. They make a pore and they split like a pore. We call poricidal capsule. So this is the summary of the dry fruit that can be separated into dehiscence and the indehiscence dry fruit. We use the pericarp character to identify or to separate each type. And as you know, the samaroid is actually it is not the fruit type, but it is just the modified nut. So the wing developed from the sepal or petals. So it is a samaroid. And for the dehiscence, you can use the number of the carpel to separate the type of the dehiscence and also the direction of the dehiscence. Flowering plants presentation is the attachment of ovule inside the ovary. The ovule inside flower ovary, which later become the seeds inside the fruit, are attached via funiculus. And there are many types of the presentations. The first one is marginals. The marginal, it is usually found in the monocarpel or unilocular ovary. They have only one locule and only one carpel, and the ovule attack along the ridges, along the ventral sides of the ovary. The next one is axil placentation. Axil placentation made from the fruit or the syncarpous fruit, and there are many carpel or many locule inside. Each locule form a central axis and the oval attached to the central axis. This is the axile placentation. For the parietal placentation, the parietal placentation is that the ovule form on the ovary inner wall in a single chamber at the first. It is the single chamber at the first, and it then becomes two chamber with the creation of false septum. So you can found the false septums, and there are many rows of the ovule attachment. It's different from the marginal. In the marginal, it is only one row of the ovule attachment, and marginal we cannot see the false septum. For the free central, the free central look like axile, but it's different because the free central come from the ovary that have only one locule or only one carpel, but the axile placentation, they have the axis in the center and they have many locule or many carpel. So this is how difference. For the basals, the basal is the presentation that the ovule attached to the base of the ovary like this. And is it different to the apical? The apical is that the ovule attached at the tip or the top of the ovary. So the ovule will be close to the stigma. This is the apical placentation. This is the example. Let's get which one is marginal. This is the marginal. This is the marginal placentation. You can see that this is only one row of the ovule attachment and only one carpel. And here, this is an example of free central presentation. This is the central axis, and this is the ovule attached to the central axis, and they have only one carpel or only one locule. Here, this is the axile placentation, and this is the cross section of axile placentation. The placentation of the axile is that the ovule attached to the central axis, and there are many chamber, many locule, many carpel within one ovary. For the cucumber, they have parietal placentation. The meaning of parietal placentation, as I told you before, you have to look at the false septum, and here this is the false septum of the parietal placentations. For the apical placentation you can see from the plant sample in our laboratory. I think we have today. The apical of the lotus fruit. This is the ovule that attached to the tip of the ovary, and is it close to the stigma? This is the stigma, and this is the ovary. And this is an example of the apical presentation. And the fruit of the lotus is nut. It's also nut. For the seeds of different plant may vary in many ways, but the basic anatomy remain the same. As you know, the function of the seeds that it can help in germination of the new plant. Moreover, the seeds can also contain food reservoir in the form of cotyledon and endosperm. So the embryo inside the seeds will use the food from cotyledon and endosperm. This is the source of food inside the seeds. And we also use the character or the number of the cotyledon to separate it into dicot and monocot plant. The plant that have two cotyledons we call dicot plants or dicotyledonous plant. But any plant that have only one cotyledon we call monocot plant or monocotyledonous plants. So this is the meaning and the difference. It depends on the number of the cotyledon inside the seeds. In the structure of the seeds quite the same. Within the seeds are covered by seed coat. The seed coat developed from integument of the ovule. And inside the seeds, we will see this is the embryo. In the dicot plant, there are two cotyledons here. And this is the embryo. The embryo composed of radicle. Radicle is the first root, and the shoot is plumule. The plumule and radicle. For the hypocotyl is the stem of the seedling that are between radicle and cotyledon. But for the epicotyl is the seedling stem that are between plumule and cotyledon. This is the meaning of the epicotyl. The hypocotyl, it is different regions on the embryos or the seedling stem. For the monocot, it's also the same. They also have endosperm and they have cotyledon. Here they have plumule and they also have radicle. If we focus on the compositions of the seeds by looking at the presence and the absence of endosperm, we can separate or we can divide the type of the seed into two types, which are exalbuminaceous and albuminaceous. So what is the difference? The albuminaceous is the seed that retain or generate a portion of endosperm. They have the endosperm as the food source for embryo. But for the exalbuminaceous, it is seeds that they don't have or they lack endosperm. So how do the embryo get its food? Because in the exalbuminaceous they don't have endosperm. The food will move or transfer to the cotyledon. So the cotyledon of exalbuminaceous are of weird and it's full of nutrients. So this is how different. The presence and the absence of endosperm can be used to suppress the type of cyst also. Seed germination is the basic process of emerging a new plant from seeds under appropriate conditions, including water, sunlight, oxygen, and moderate temperature. The type of seed germination is depend on the position of cotyledon during germination. If the cotyledon stay underground, we call hypogeal germination. But if the cotyledon come above ground, we call epigeal germination. Here, this is the cotyledon above ground, cotyledon, and this is the hypogeal germination, and the cotyledons stay underground. So this is how difference. At the end of this class, I try to summarize the difference between dicot and monocot structure. Start from the seed structure. In the monocot, there is only one cotyledon, but in dicot, there are two cotyledons. Monocot usually have fibrous root system, but dicot have taproot system. For the stem of monocot, they don't have woody part and they don't have secondary growth, but they have some primary thickening and they have some strong scarification like in bamboo. Moreover, the cross section of their anatomy are also different. The vascular bundle in the monocot are scattered, but in dicot they are arranged as a ring. For the leaf, the leaf of monocot, the shape usually narrow and they have parallel venation. But in dicot, the shape of the leaf usually round or oval. It's more like round or oval, but it's not parallel, or it's not narrow shape like in monocot. Moreover, they also have netted venation. For the flower of monocot and dicot are different in the number of petals. The number of the petals in monocot usually 3 or multiple of 3, but in dicot usually 4 or 5 or multiple of 4 or 5. So this is the how difference.